Welcome all, Dax here, and in today's video I'm going to be going over my first impressions for The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Sit back, relax, and let's get into it. So just to give you context, I am not very experienced with Legend of Zelda games just overall, and I've actually never played Skyward Sword. So I'm coming at this game with a very fresh perspective just because I've never played it. Obviously, since it is a port, I'm going to be a little more generous to the graphics, but even then I'm going to get into that a little bit. One of the first things that I do love about the game is the setting. I don't know what it is about it, but the whole Cloud City atmosphere just really does it for me. Kind of linked to the setting, I'm really digging the art style of the game. It reminds me a lot of a painting, and I did a little research and it looks like that's what they were going for, so I think it's accomplishing that goal for sure. This isn't to say the art direction is perfect. I think a lot of the models are kind of ugly looking. I mean, Link looks good, and a lot of the other characters don't look too bad, but some of them just look kind of out there, and like it's kind of distracting. A perfect example of this would be Zelda's father. Like every time I look at him, I just find it distracting how ugly and strange looking he is. Now, like it seems to be the look they're going for, that cartoon look, but I don't know. I feel like they should have gone a little bit of a different direction with that. I mean, Link looks normal, so I'm not sure why everyone else has to look like their face got hit by a truck. Another area of the game, which I guess you would say is showing its age, is the animations. A lot of them are not very smoothed out, and they look kind of awkward, but I mean, it's not a huge deal, but I definitely notice it. It's kind of hard to weigh how much of that is because of the game's age or how much of it's just the game period. Because I feel like, looking back, a lot of Wii games weren't great, but I feel like a lot of them actually didn't look that bad in the animation department, but maybe not. But moving on, I am having somewhat of mixed feelings about the camera controls. So I've been having a hard time getting used to holding down the top L trigger, and it's just an awkward feeling of always having to press that button anytime you want to move the camera around. Every game almost ever you can just move the camera around freely, so I've been having a hard time getting used to it. Now I understand, being as far as I am, that it's because of the sword mechanics, and I actually do like the swinging motion of the swords. Now I haven't dipped into the motion controls yet, but just using the buttons, I do think it's a cool concept that the direction you swing the stick around is actually the direction that the sword is slicing. So again, I understand why they have the weird camera controls, but I still am not the biggest fan of it, and I'm not entirely used to it. As far as the story's going, I'm not very far. I'm about 3 hours in, so I'm starting to quest to go find Zelda, and I do think their relationship seems to be pretty organic. I like the way it was written. You really seem to have that sense of like attachment between the two of them. You get a sense of like what their relationship is like, and how close they are as people. I'm hooked, I guess you would say, into the reason why I'm on this quest. The interesting thing is a lot of the other characters are kind of two-dimensional, I guess very cartoony, as I mentioned earlier. So like the main bully, I forget his name on the top of my head, but he reminds me of Biff from Back to the Future. He's very similar to that kind of stereotypical bully character who's just going to harass you. I'm not sure how a lot of the Zelda community feels about this, because I've heard people say this before and a lot of people just kind of dismiss it, but I do think these kind of games would benefit from having voice acting. It doesn't mean that it has to have voice acting, and it doesn't mean that it's bad without it, but it just seems strange to have such a strong presentation aspect of these games but not have voice acting in it. With the original games, obviously it makes sense that they would be doing, there wouldn't be any dialogue at all, and it'd just be text box. But I just think by now, like especially with the new Breath of the Wild, but even with this game, it just makes sense that maybe they should be doing voice acting. I'm sure it would increase their budget a bit, and it would be a lot more time consuming to do multiple languages. That's just a little nitpick. Obviously it's not the end of the world. Speaking of nitpicks, one thing that is annoying me is the name. I don't know why the character's name is not just Link. So I didn't know that when you started a game, whatever you named your game as was actually the name of your character. I was under the impression you were naming the save data, not your character. His name is Link, so I don't know why we're calling him, in my case, DaxRev, which is supposed to be short for review. So I don't know why that is a thing. But if I would have known, I would have just named him Link. Maybe it doesn't bother some people, but it doesn't make sense to me to name a character if it's not a role-playing game where you can customize that character, because you're filling the shoes of an existing character. So it's just not a fan of it. I'm having some fun for sure. I'm interested to see where the story goes, because as I mentioned, I'm not very far, but I will definitely be posting my full review, and if it's already up, you'll be seeing it linked to this video. Other than that, if you have any opinions or thoughts, feel free to leave that below. And if you like what you see, leave a like. And until next time, see ya!